Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's going to be a little bit different. Blake's on vacation, so it's going to be me running it solo for the next two episodes. So let's head into it. In the American League, Cleveland took 3 of 4 from Boston. Baltimore swept Minnesota. Texas took 3 of 4 from Detroit. The Angels and Tampa Bay split. Toronto took 2 of 3 from New York. Kansas City took 2 of 3 from Chicago, with the fourth game being postponed. In the NL, Philly swept Colorado. San Francisco took 2 of 3 from Miami. The Mets swept Pittsburgh. San Diego took 2 of 3 from Milwaukee. Chicago took 2 of 3 from Arizona. And Washington took 2 of 3 from LA. In the Interleague, Atlanta swept Houston. Seattle swept Cincinnati. And St. Louis took 2 of 3 from the A's. Looking into the weekend, first up in the American League, we have Tampa Bay taking the New York Yankees. It's going to be Tyler Alexander versus Clark Schmidt, Zach Eflin versus Nestor Cortez, and Aaron Savali versus Luis Gil. I'm going to go ahead and take the Yankees on this one. They're coming off of a series loss of the Toronto Blue Jays. I think they're going to get back on track at home. Next up, we have Oakland heading into Cleveland. It'll be Joe Boyle versus Tristan McKenzie, Alex Wood versus Logan Allen, and Ross Stripling versus Tanner Bybee. Hats off to Oakland. They've been playing pretty well lately, but I am going to go with the Guards, who are coming off of a 3 of 4 of Boston. They've also been playing pretty good baseball, plus they took the opening day series against them in Oakland. Next up, we have Detroit heading into Minnesota. It'll be Jack Flaherty versus Joe Ryan, Reese Olson versus Bailey Ober, and Casey Mize versus Louis Varland. Both of these teams are coming off of series losses. The Twins were swept by Baltimore, but I am going to go with the Twins in this one. I think Joe Ryan versus Jack Flaherty, if they can set the tone and win Game 1, they'll end up winning the series. So for this one, I'm going to take the Twins, but both these teams have been playing so-so baseball to start the year. Lastly, in the AL, we have Baltimore heading into Kansas City. It'll be Dean Kramer versus Alec Marsh, Corbin Burns versus Cole Reagans, and Cole Irvin versus Seth Lugo. This is already round 2 for these two teams. Kansas City took the first round in Baltimore, but Baltimore is coming off of a sweep. I'm going to take the O's to win this series, but I do like what Kansas City's doing thus far in the season. Heading over to the National League, we have the Mets going to play the Dodgers in LA. It's going to be Sean Manaea versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Jose Butto versus Gavin Stone, and Adrian Hauser versus James Paxton. The Mets are coming off of a sweep of Pittsburgh, and the Dodgers haven't won a series in 3 straight. But I am going to take the Dodgers in this one. James Paxton's looked good in his starts. Yamamoto has been a little up and down, but looked better of late. I think their pitching is just going to be too much for the Mets offense, so I'm going to take the Dodgers in this one. Next, we have an NL West showdown between the D-backs and the Giants. It'll be Ryan Nelson versus Logan Webb, Jordan Montgomery versus Blake Snell, and Zach Gallen versus Kyle Harrison. Both of these teams haven't looked great to start the season. I will give the D-backs a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, though. They have been playing pretty competitive ball. They did have to play Atlanta. They played New York. They just came off of a really competitive series with the Cubs. The Giants, though, they just haven't really looked good, in my opinion. Blake Snell hasn't got it going yet. It will be Jordan Montgomery's debut. I'm going to take the D-backs to go into San Francisco and win the series. Next up, we have Miami heading into Chicago to play the Cubs. It'll be AJ Puck versus Jameson Taillon, Jesus Luzardo versus Shota Imanaga, and Edward Cabrera versus Javier Assad. Looking at this matchup early in the season, you would have thought that it could have been a good one. But at this point, I think it's pretty self-explanatory why I'm going to take the Cubs. Miami just hasn't clicked on any cylinder, and they look pretty defeated as a ball club. Our last NL matchup we have is the Milwaukee Brewers heading into St. Louis to play the Cardinals. It'll be Freddie Peralta versus Kyle Gibson, DL Hall versus Miles Mikolas, and Colin Ray versus Sonny Gray. I'm going to go ahead and take Milwaukee on this one, but that might be a curse to Milwaukee fans because I'm pretty sure I haven't got one Milwaukee series right the entire season. But I'm going to stick with them. I'm going to go with Milwaukee. The Cardinals have just been bled to me, and I'm hoping that I can break the curse this week. Next up is our 7 interleague matchups, and first up, we have the Angels heading into Cincinnati. It'll be Tyler Anderson versus Nick Lodolo, Patrick Sandoval versus Graham Ashcraft, and Jose Soriano versus Frankie Montas. Personally, I think the Reds are a better ball club than the Angels, but they have been playing so-so baseball outside of that White Sox series a couple of series ago where they swept, and they also are coming off of a series where they just got swept by Seattle. The Angels have been hanging in ball games, but they're not very good ball club. So I am going to go ahead and take the Angels in this one. They are on a 10-game road trip, and if they were to take this series, they would be heading home 5-5. I'm going to take the Angels on this one. Next up, we have the banged up Boston Red Sox going into Pittsburgh to play the Pirates. It'll be Brian Bayo versus to be determined, Cutter Crawford versus Mitch Keller, and to be determined versus Martin Perez. Both of these teams have had a slow start to the week, Boston losing 3 of 4 to Cleveland, and then Pittsburgh getting swept by the Mets. I'm going to go ahead and take Pittsburgh on this one. Boston's pitching has been impressive to start the year. It was supposed to be a weak spot for them, but they have the best starter ERA in the league. I just think that offensively, Tyler O'Neill just hit the IL, and Rafael Devers is still banged up. I'm going to go ahead and take Pittsburgh on this one. Next up, we have the White Sox heading into Philadelphia to play the Phillies. It'll be Garrett Crochet versus Spencer Turnbull, Mike Soroka versus Zach Wheeler, and to be determined versus Aaron Nola. The Phillies have been swinging it a lot better lately, and the White Sox at this point are pretty much a dumpster fire. So the Phillies should have no issue sweeping the White Sox this weekend, but at least taking 2 of 3. They have Wheeler and Nola on the mound, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the Phillies. Next up, we have the Houston Astros heading into DC to play the Nats. It'll be Justin Verlander in his season debut against Mackenzie Gore, Ronel Blanco versus Trevor Williams, and Christian Javier versus Mitchell Parker. The Astros have had a tough go to start the season. They're 6-14. They've played the Yankees, they've played the Braves, they've played Texas twice, but now they get a easier opponent in the Nats. But the Nats are coming off a series where they just beat the Dodgers 2 out of 3. I am going to take Houston to get back on track this series against the Nats, but if they don't, we really have a problem. Next up, we have the Texas Rangers heading into Atlanta to play the Braves. It'll be Andrew Heaney versus Chris Sale, Nady Eovaldi versus Charlie Morton, and Michael Lorenzen versus Darius Vines. I think this will be one of the better series we've seen thus far this season. I think the Rangers have been playing a lot better of baseball, but the Braves have been pretty unstoppable to start the season. They just swept Houston. I'm going to go ahead and say they take 2 of 3 from the Rangers. I don't think there will be a sweep in this series, but I am going to go with the Braves. Next up, we have the Toronto Blue Jays heading into San Diego to take on the Padres. It'll be Yariel Rodriguez versus Matt Waldron, Jose Barrios versus to be determined, and Chris Bassett versus Joe Musgrove. Both of these teams have been playing better baseball. Jays just took 2 of 3 from the Yankees. Padres just took 2 of 3 from Milwaukee. I do like the Jays pitching more than I like the Padres, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to stop the Padres offense. I like the Padres offense better than the Jays. The Jays just haven't been scoring enough runs, and they're relying heavily on pitching. If Bassett gives up 4 or Yariel Rodriguez gives up 4, I don't see the Jays overcoming that. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Padres on this one. Lastly, we have the Mariners heading into Colorado to take on the Rockies. It'll be Emerson Hancock versus Dakota Hudson, Luis Castillo versus Kyle Freeland, and George Kirby versus Cal Quantrill. The Mariners' offense hasn't really gotten it going this season, but going to Colorado might kickstart it. Honestly, they're just much better than the Rockies. Their pitching's better, their offense is better, and they just came off of a sweep of the Reds. I'm going to take Seattle to win this series. That's going to do it for this week. Before I go, let's run through it one more time. I have the Yankees, Cleveland, Minnesota, Baltimore, LA, Arizona, Chicago, Milwaukee, Angels, Pittsburgh, Philly, Houston, Atlanta, San Diego, and Seattle. And Blake's picks are the Yankees, Oakland, Detroit, Kansas City, Mets, Arizona, Chicago, Milwaukee, Angels, Pittsburgh, Philly, Houston, Texas, Toronto, and Seattle. That's going to do it for this one. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.